Hi, I'm here with Davidson from Avalanche Studios. You are the executive producer on Just Cause 4.
Yes, sir.
And I've already seen the demonstration, and I was thinking, yeah, in the next game they maybe let me pull planets or moons down to the Earth and crash them into everything. So what's the limit for your crazy ideas?
I don't know that we know yet. We're still kind of focused on wrapping up 4, and we're going to go into concept on the next game at some point. And at that point, we're going to kind of go through our process. We're going to say, what is the next thing that we want to do? What is, how do we top a tornado? How do we top a tropical storm?
Yeah.
And then we'll begin concepting it out, go into pre-pro, do some prototypes, and then if need be, we begin kind of working with the engine to make sure it can support whatever that is.
Yeah. But Just Cause 4 is I think, really a physical sandbox where you can try to manipulate everything and anything.
Yeah.
But doesn't distract that from the actual game, or do you say no, the game is whatever the player spends time with and that's okay?
I think we're a little more in that line. Naturally, we want to provide a narrative and a story and a core experience that's engaging and fun and vibrant. But at the same time, we recognize not every player wants the same thing out of a game. Some players do just want the sandbox. They do just want the environment. They want to be able to do everything that they can think of and have it work the way it kind of does in JC, where it's all physics-based. So we recognize that difference in needs and taste, and we try to do our best to kind of accommodate as many of those players as possible. You can't get everybody, but we think, sorry. So I could trail on forever. Yeah.
Me too. If you would have the choice of just doing it the way you want, would you do a story-based open-world game, or would you do a physics-based open-world
Me personally?
game? Yes, you personally.
Oh, me personally? I would say the physics-based sandbox is, I'm the kind of guy, I came out of QA originally. So if you give me something where I can play with it and see all the different behaviors and then begin getting creative about, like, okay, so if it works like that, then I can do this and then try that out. I can do that for years and years and years, like on its own.
But it must be terrible hard to balance such a game.
It's not so much.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't look at it in terms of like a core linear progression. We look at it more as pieces.
Okay.
Almost in the same way the objects in the environment are different types of destructibles or different types of objects, right? And we can do all sorts of different configurations with that. We look at the enemies as something that stands on their own. Like a fuel tank exists as a certain type of destructible. A ghost is a certain type of an enemy. And he has his own behaviors and things he does. And then we basically think about, we want the world to be open from the very beginning. So we can put a bit of a progression of maybe we use more difficult enemies more the further from the start point we get. But we don't want to limit or constrain the player that way too arbitrarily. I don't know if that answers the question.
But still you need choke points where you can get him back into line for a certain story mission.
The stories will the story missions will kind of do that for themselves. We're not talking too much about the narrative at this show, at least, but the way it's structured is that they will guide you into the content they want you to be doing. But if you don't want to do them, then they just sit there on the side.
Okay.
And you can go do whatever you want.
Until some time comes back to them.
And running around the world and accomplishing other objectives that contribute towards kind of the greater collective picture doesn't...
Like the frontline moving? Or?
Right. Yeah. The frontline moving is actually one of the best examples of how it's important to us in the game that the actions that you have some degree of like impact or consequence. So the front line is the first time we've been able to kind of demonstrate this isn't just Rico blowing up a bunch of stuff and then a country falls. This is Rico goes in and supports a rebellion full of people. And then
the Army of Chaos.
The Army of Chaos. And so say you take a tank factory or something like that, and next time, now they will have tanks on the front line. So you'll begin to see the actions that you put into the game kind of reflected in that, and you'll understand visually when you look at the world, almost like without UI to some degree, this is where the action is. This is what I've done, and this is what's remaining to be done.
But let's go back to balancing. You have the tornado, for example. Very impressive looking. It's really there. It's not just a bitmap and all that. Yes, and you shouldn't fly in there with a plane, maybe. But
or maybe you should.
The tornado is supposed to be able to destroy nearly everything in its path.
Right.
but you cannot have the player leaning back for 2 days, not doing anything, and afterwards he has a plain island and nothing stands there anymore. So you need to restrict the movement of the tornado to
Correct.
certain regions, and I guess that's exactly what you're doing.
Yes, and in fact, each of the different types of extreme weather are region constrained. So we have the 4 distinct biomes within the game. So the rainforest has tropical storms, the alpine has blizzards, the sandstorms in the desert, and then the tornadoes out in the grasslands. And even then, we're conscious of where the tornado can go, because we don't want it to, like you said, complete the game for you. That's not the objective. Yeah. So for the most part, thus far we've been able to kind of keep that from occurring. Yeah.
Rico as a character is not exactly where you would go get an Oscar for because of the depth of his feelings and characterization. Is that something which is meaningless to you, or do you simply say no, it wouldn't really fit into a game which is so out of bounds in many respects?
So the narrative process is something that we've invested in this time around. We feel it took a big step forward with Just Cause 3 compared to say 2 or 1. But we're not quite where we wanted to be. So this time around we hired a narrative director for the first time within the franchise, and as well like a lead writer who's like a real deal writer. And it's important, what we want to start getting across is more of Rico's background, more of his motivations, much in the same way that we approach the art direction of the game. Is we could do Just Cause in a cartoon world. It would work, right? Yeah. But we don't want to do it that way, because when you blow up a cartoon military base, there's one feeling, whereas if you blow up something that is sort of grounded in a realistic vision, it has weight and context. Okay. So it's almost more impressive, that explosion.
So you want me as a player with all his humor and witty remarks, but you want me to still take him serious as a character?
I mean, to the degree that you can. Rico's not a perfectly straight-faced guy. He's got a sense of humor. I mean, you look at what he does for a living, he'd have to have a sense of humor. But we want him to be someone that you understand a little bit more, that you kind of understand where he's coming from, what his motivations are, and who his character is as a person, and how that kind of supports the actions he's doing in the game. We think that enhances. We don't think it's a hard requirement to be able to enjoy the game that he has that, but the more we can add there, the better off we'll be. Yeah.
Last question, if you look back at Just Cause 3 and now at 4, what's the single thing you think you have improved most upon?
I think it's towards the tool set and the options that we give to the player. I think that it's not the flashiest feature in the world. Certainly Tornado is going to catch a lot more attention. And it's a spectacular feature, but I think the degree of customization we've given to the grapple hook, that will allow players to surprise us. And when that's happening, I think that's when we feel like we've done our job, is when we've given players so much that we're watching their YouTube videos or Twitch videos and going like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, you see what that guy did, or this guy built a giant Jenga, or whatever it is. And so with this iteration, the combinations of things you can do with the grapple hook is well in the thousands. And so I think that's the thing, like when people suddenly realize they've been playing the game for a year, even well after they've beaten it, like that's how we're going to get there. So that's what I get excited about, at least, is seeing that out in the wild. I can't wait to have players playing with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for coming
by.
by.
And good luck finishing the game.
Thank you. Still got work to do, but we'll get there.